Okay, I'm going to do scene 3 and scene 4 together, since scene 4 is very short, but I'm going to go very fast. So scene 3 is a very funny scene at the beginning, and it needs to be, because this is called comic relief, and people have been almost breathless because of this experience of the build-up to this murder, and a good writer is going to take people down and then build them back up. So if a plot like this just goes straight up with no movement, just straight up, people are almost like this by the end, a good writer is going to take you up, drop you down, take you back up, and this is what comic relief does. And so this drunken porter is a hilarious scene. Remember, I told you in class that the servants wouldn't have their dinner and party until after the nobles were served. And so the porter would not have gotten his dinner, his wine, his beer until at least after midnight. So he's still drunk. That knocking that started during the murder is still going on. And the porter comes to the door totally drunk. He imagines that he is the porter or the doorkeeper of hell. And he's wondering, who's coming into hell now? And so he has some very funny lines about that. When he goes to the door, it's Macduff and Lennox. And they're here to pick up the king. The king told him to come early. He needed to start his day early. And so the porter goes on and on about the effects of alcohol. Now, I'm not going to give you all the little gory details of that. You read that for yourself. But it's full of innuendo, sexual innuendo. And the audience would have found it absolutely hilarious. Macbeth comes out, hearing that knocking. Now, I like to think about that scene where maybe Lady Macbeth and Macbeth were in their room changing clothes. I think Lady Macbeth would have had to slap him around just a little bit, because Macbeth was losing it. With the hands, with the talk, with, oh, would thou couldst, I wish thou couldn't. And so I think Lady Macbeth had to get him back into that false face. Remember, she had told him one time, your face, my thane, is as a book where men may read strange matters. So she needs to get him back to this false face. And so he comes out and he's just fine. They're talking about the king, and they want to be taken to the king's room. So Macbeth says, sure, I'll take you. Now notice that Macbeth does not go in. He said, I'm not going to go back, I don't want to see it, and he doesn't. He stays right there at the door, and he's chatting it up with Lennox while Macduff goes in to wake the king. Macduff comes running out, horror, horror, the same word Macbeth has done. That's a text echo. And he is absolutely dumbfounded and horrified at what he's seen. And all of a sudden, chaos breaks out into the castle. He starts screaming for everybody to wake up. Everybody wake up. Confusion has broke open the building. And what? What are you saying? What, the king? What's going on? Even Macbeth, why do you say the king? Lennox says, are you talking about His Majesty? And Macduff, oh, he's very dramatic. Approach the chamber and destroy your sight. Your eyes will never forget this. Ring the alarm bell, murder, treason. It's just going crazy in the castle. And here comes Lady Macbeth. And she says, what's going on? What's causing everybody to wake up? You're waking up the people in my home in such a vicious and rude manner. And he says, oh, it's not for you to hear. You're a lady. Right. Not so much. Then Banquo comes in, so he does say, oh, Banquo, Banquo, our royal master is murdered. Lady Macbeth's reaction is quite unusual. She says, what, in our house? She might as well have said, did he get blood on the carpet? And they look at her in a very strange way. What, too cruel anywhere. What does it matter if it's your house? But again, things keep going. Macbeth is, oh, I wish I had lived before this time. This is the worst time ever. And he's putting on as best a false face as he possibly can. Malcolm and Donalbain, the king's two sons, come in. And, oh, what's wrong? What's wrong? Well, oh, you're wrong, and you don't even know it. And look through those lines to see. They said, who did it? Well, it looks like those of his chamber had done it. They were smeared with blood. And watch what Macbeth says here. Oh, yet I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them. He did what? The plan was to kill Duncan. Who said anything about killing the guards? All of a sudden now Macbeth's murder toll has gone from 1 body to 3. And Lady Macbeth, all of a sudden, who's been in charge of this, is thinking, he has gone off plan. And she is totally upset by this. And they said, why did you do this? And he says, well, who could blame me? Look at the top of page 28. Macbeth says, who? There was Duncan, and he was laced with golden blood, not just his red blood, but golden blood. And then there they were, and they were covered in his blood. And who could blame me? It was obvious they did it, and so I was just the judge and the justice right then, right there. I just had to just kill him. Macbeth didn't really want to face them waking up and saying, we didn't do this. He didn't want the suspicion, and so he silenced it. And we can see the beginnings of Macbeth taking control in this situation. Lady Macbeth needs to shut him up because he's talking too much, and so she fakes this faint. Help me, Hansel. And everybody goes, look to the lady. And then it just, all the chaos goes. Malcolm and Donalbain, the two sons, meanwhile, are saying, what do you think? My gosh, what are we going to do? It's possible that we're next. Banquo says, we need to get some order here. Let's talk about it, see what we're going to do, and figure out who is responsible and how we're going to handle it. Macbeth suggests, let's all get dressed and meet in the room together and talk about it, and everybody agrees. So they do. When they leave, Malcolm and Donalbain say, let's all go with them. In fact, let's separate, because if we separate, we'll maybe be safe. So Malcolm says, I'll go to England. Donalbain says, I'll go to Ireland. Even their names are English and Irish. Our separated fortunes might keep us alive if we're separate. This arrow that shot, the image of shooting an arrow, the murder has launched, the one murder. The arrow has not landed yet. They don't know who it is or why, or if they're after the whole family. Remember, Malcolm's already been named as the heir to the throne, and he feels like he might be next. And so they're safer if they leave. Donalbain says something very important to the false face theme. He says, where we are, there's daggers in men's smiles. The near in blood, the nearer bloody. Blood. False face. And then Malcolm ends with that image of the arrow that's been shot, and they leave. The last scene in this act is scene 4, and Ross is out there with an old man. We find out from them that when those men met, they decided that Macbeth would be the new king. He was the highest in authority. He was Thane of 2 territories, and he had just been honored by the king, and so they choose him. He's going to Scone, and this is where all Scottish kings are crowned. It is a tradition, a long-standing tradition. In fact, the stone of Scone has been under the throne of England, a literal stone, for a long time, and it was not that long ago, maybe 10 years ago, when England finally returned that stone of Scone to Scotland and let Scotland establish their own parliament. Macduff comes, and they ask Macduff, are you going to the coronation? And Macduff says, oh, not me. I'm not going. And he said, why? Ross says, do you know, is it clear who did this? Macduff says, well, it was apparently those who Macbeth killed, the guards. And then Macduff says, it looks like Malcolm and Donalbain paid them to do it because they have taken off. So the guilt looks like it is on them. Suspicion of the deed puts upon them suspicion of the deed. Ross says, whew, that's against nature. And we've already talked about this against nature. We've seen this over and over again as too. And he's gone to Scone. Macduff says, I will not go. I'm not supporting that. We see already Macduff's suspicion, and that we see at the end of this scene another clothing image where Macduff says, well, may you see things well done there, adieu, lest our old robes sit easier than our new. Think about that line, think about what that means, and that is the end of Act 2.